I want to show you all one of the most meta builds and how easily you can set it up now that we all have access to every single mod. Now, if you saw from the thumbnail, this is going to be all around making your volatile rounds as strong as possible. This is of course going to be on the hunter, pairing it with the Falcon's exotic with the most recent change. And now that we've had time with this change to it, I definitely think this is one of the best setups that you can run around it. It is super simple. All you have to worry about is dodging from time to time and you will be good to go. All right, so jump right into it. First off, let's go over the exotic Falcon's halberd. And this is a lot. If you already know what this does, just skip ahead, but this has the exotic perk See Me, Feel Me. Your void weapons gain volatile rounds after you emerge from being invisible. When you are invisible and defeat a combatant while using a finisher, all of your weapons gain bonus damage. You and your nearby allies gain a reserve overshield and improved class ability regeneration. These reserve overshields can be deployed by using a class ability. That was a mouthful. So as you can clearly see, it does a lot, but the main thing we're going to be focused on is the fact that when you come out of invisibility, you're going to grant volatile rounds for all your void weapons. If you don't know what volatile rounds are, they essentially just make every single bullet of your void weapons be able to apply this explosion detonating bomb type of thing, and they can actually do a lot of extra damage for just single target damage, and it is also extremely good for helping out with ad clear. But now this also does have the secondary part where if you are invisible, you can finish an enemy, which is going to grant you extra damage, and everybody's going to have overshields when they use their class ability and increase class ability cooldown. So basically, to round this up, when you're invisible, shoot so you can apply volatile everywhere, or if you want to go on the more defensive, you're invisible, finish enemy, and then you're going to give everybody overshields with more class ability cooldown and also give yourself increased damage. Now this is typically where I would go into the subclass, but since we're going to heavily be focused on our exotic and pairing that with our weapons, we need to actually talk about weapons we're going to be using. I personally like to run the title. You can run pretty much any void weapon you want to, especially if you're taking it into in-game content. You're going to need to swap this out for different things, obviously for your champion mods. But for the title as a baseline, it is very, very strong. And the reason I like it a lot is because it can roll with stats for all and one for all. Now, if you don't have this, unfortunately, you cannot get it until Guardian Games comes back around. But this also does have the perk Classic Contender. So final blows of this weapon grants class ability energy. I'm going to be playing into my dodge a lot, which you will understand more once we get into the subclass. But having stats for all, one for all is nice because the main thing you want to do with volatile rounds is to spread it as much as possible. So if you're spreading on 3 different targets to apply those detonators, you're also getting a bunch of buffs with this weapon, and you can just blow everything up. Now, another fun option is things like the Retrofit Escapade. As you probably have all seen, this thing can absolutely demolish with Falcons, and it is very, very good. 4 times the charm target lock to get you that increased damage the more you're shooting the target. You almost never have to reload the thing, and you won't have to reload it once we get into the subclass, and you could just demolish enemies. I do like to pair this with Wither Horde just to do some extra damage in the background, but you can also pair this things like Arbalist if you're taking in-game content, Bash it if you need Unstoppable, anything to swap out just depending on the activity you're playing in. But as a baseline, this is pretty much my go-to I run for my weapons. Now to amplify all that, I am going to be taking the aspects fantasy steps. So dodging is going to make you invisible. This is pretty self-explanatory. You dodge, you go invisible, and the dodge I like to take is marksman dodge. So when you dodge, you will actually reload your equipped weapon. So this means now if you're in a boss fight, you can use Retrofit Escapade, constantly shoot it with 4 times the charm. Once it finally gets down to the bottom of the magazine, just dodge, you go back invisible, you reproc your Falcons, and now you have a fully reloaded machine gun. You're going to be getting your dodge back a lot with Classic Contender and some of our other mods that we'll get into, and overall, just that alone is enough to make this build extremely strong. Now we also have Stylus Executioner, so defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile targets grant invisibility and true sight. After performing Stylus Executioner, your next melee attack while invisible will weaken targets. So the main thing with this is when you defeat a volatile enemy, you actually go invisible, which will then reproc your Falcons 24/7. So as you can see, the main thing you want to do with this build is to constantly make sure you're invisible. This is also going to help out with your survivability a lot because nothing will shoot you while you're invisible. And this is where it gets a little weird with the subclass. Unlike Warlock and Titan, you're really not even worried about any other parts of the subclass. You mainly just want these 2 aspects and your Falcons and you're good to go. But there are some things that can play into it a little bit. And what I like to do is just make a heavy weakened focus build. Now I like to run Deadfall for that because Deadfall, in my opinion, is just going to be the better super if you are weakening targets. It has a longer range, it lasts longer, and this applies a very hefty debuff to whatever enemy you're shooting at. If you want to take Mobius Quiver for some damage, you could, but I think playing into this build, Deadfall is the way to go. So that is one way to debuff your target. Now another way is your Snare Bomb. So this is going to allow you to throw your Smoke Bomb and it will weaken targets on whatever it hits. This is very, very nice. It's extremely easy to do. You're never really ever going to use this other than to just weaken, so you don't have to worry about ever throwing it. Same goes as your grenade. I like to take Vortex Grenade because we will have this weekend with our fragments. It is just easy to throw, it lasts pretty long, and overall you're going to have 3 abilities to weaken targets whenever you need them. Since volatile rounds is very good for single target and ad clear, you don't really have to worry about any of these to help you out with any of those. So just heavily play it into weakening targets, I think, is the way to go. But for fragments, we have Echo of Remnant. So basically my Vortex Grenade will last a little bit longer. Then I'll also be taking Echo of Undermining, so my Void Grenades will weaken targets. This is now going to let that Void Grenade apply the same weaken effect as my melee. And since it lasts longer, I will also have Weaken Up longer on whatever target I throw it at. I also like to run Echo of Persistence, so whatever Void buffs that apply to me will have increased duration, specifically invisibility. This will just let you get to area a little bit faster if you need to stay invisible a little bit longer. You don't need to take this, but I would highly just recommend it if you just need to throw something in there. And then finally, Echo of Obscurity. So finish your final blows will grant you invisibility. This is going to be nice because this is another way to go invisible alongside your 2 aspects. But on top of that, if you do play into the second part of your Falcons, where you're going to get that extra damage, that survivability with the overshields, that cooldown rate, everything like that, this will also let you go invisible again, so you have that damage buff, and then you can come out of that invisibility to get the volatile rounds alongside the damage buff. That's pretty much the subclass. It really is just 2 aspects, and just throw on some stuff so you can weaken targets if you're going into boss fights or just tankier majors. I would highly recommend running 100 resilience for this build so you can get as much damage reduction as possible. With you being invisible, you're pretty much unkillable, and if you can get 100 mobility to get your dodge back faster, that is the way to go. Unfortunately, I don't have good enough armor to do that quite yet. Literally every single other stat does not matter, other than maybe something like recovery if you do want to get that up, but for the most part, resilience and mobility are the 2 things you should be focusing on. Now for mods, I like to run a Reaping Wellmaker, so this is going to allow me to dodge or activate my class ability, and then the next weapon kill I get will actually spawn a Void Elemental Well. Now that's going to play heavily into some other mods, specifically with things like Font to Might. So if I pick up a Void Elemental Well, I will actually be granted a weapon damage bonus for my Void weapons. Now on top of that, I'm also going to be running Well of Tenacity. So when I pick up a Void Elemental Well, it's going to reduce the damage I take for a short period of time. Now I also like to take Elemental Time Dilation, because this will allow my Well of Tenacity and Font to Might have a little bit extra time, and since you're always going to be getting wells in the first place, this pretty much lets you have infinite uptime for both of these mods. And finally, I do like to run Seeking Wells, so this will just make all the wells I create track to me. If I kill an enemy far away after a dodge, it will just come over to me, and then I'll have a lot of uptime on damage and damage resistance. So with these mods set up, as a recap, you dodge, you will then create a well after you get a kill. That well will track to you. Then on top of that, you'll get a damage bonus and a damage resistance bonus. And then with Elemental Time Dilation, both of these will last just a little bit longer. Now for other mods, I do like running Harmonic Siphon, so this will let me get Orbs of Power when I get Rapid Weapon Final Blows to match my subclass type, so things like the Tidal will create orbs, and as you also saw, I like a Machine Gun Ammo Finder for things like the Retrofit Escapade. Obviously, you can change that out to whatever you want. Now, I do also run a SMG Reloader with the Overload SMG, but again, change these out to whatever content you're going into. If you need anti-barrier, slap on a Pulse Rifle, maybe throw on the new seasonal one, and you're good to go. Now, obviously, always take your damage resistant mods, because that's just going to make you even harder to die. I do also like to run a Better Already alongside of Insulation, so whenever I pick up an Orb of Power, I will start health regeneration and I will get class ability energy. So this means I can spam dodge more often, and since most of the time you're invisible when you pick these orbs up, nothing's going to shoot at you, so your health regeneration can just constantly go and you don't actually have to worry about dying or it being able to be stopped. And then finally, 2 of the other main mods is Utility Kickstart. So whenever you activate your class ability, you're going to restore about 20% of your class ability back, which is extremely nice because this is going to again allow you to keep going invisible, to keep rocking volatile rounds whenever you need it, and overall this is just very, very strong. So final note, as a roundup, dodge, you go invisible, you can reload your gun. On top of that, Stylus Executioner will let you stay invisible. If you ever can't proc it, you have another dodge again just to go invisible. You have Weaken with everything else part of your subclass. Things like the Tidal or any Void weapon is going to be extremely strong because you want volatile rounds with your Falcons. And Retrofit Escapade is a great option, but don't be scared to throw in a Taipan if you need just a more consistent DPS. On top of that, your Falcons does have its extra benefit, so when you finish an enemy while they're invisible, you will get a bunch of bonuses. You can take things like Echo of Obscurity to also make yourself go invisible when you finish an enemy, so that will play heavily into that. Like I said, you also have your mods to give you your Elemental Wells for extra damage. They're really easy to get. All you have to do is dodge. You have that 24/7 in the first place, and just make sure you have 100 resilience because this will just pretty much make you unkillable with all the invisibility that you're going off over and over again. Volatile rounds, extremely strong for ad clear and extremely strong for single target damage, so you are good to go with this build and you can just pretty much stay invisible forever. Now if you made it this far in the video, just like last time, a lot of you all seem to like this. This is the drip I'm running. These are all my ornaments. I did just go with 5 of the same shader Typically, I like to switch it up a little bit, but I figured this would just look well with the Void build that we're playing into. But all right, that is pretty much the build. Let me know what you all think about it in the comments below. Would you change anything about it? Are you already running a build similar to this? I know Falcons is extremely strong, but now with everybody having mods, I definitely want to look back at it and set up a very easy to put together build that will also let you take this into pretty much any content in the game. But if y'all would like to try this build out, I will have a dim link to it in the description below. But if y'all enjoy and learn anything new, consider subscribing, drop a like, and turn notifications on. Also, if you like join my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all of that will be linked in the description as well. But just know watching this video is way more than enough, and that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.